Hello and welcome back to a new video here on the Lötwig Fusel channel. Now, it happens at some point in your C++ programming carry that you use external libraries and open source tools to generate your projects. For example, I'm the guy, you know me for that. I like to use Conan for my external dependencies and Premake 5 for actually building the application. So taking Premake, taking Conan, and everything is fine, solution generates, all is good. Well, that's at least the idea behind it. But there's one big thing that's always going to be a problem if you're working with toolchains. It's the support of the toolchains. Now, it can always happen that some part in your toolchain is dropping support for one and each other. For example, like Conan could drop support for Premake, or Premake could drop support for Visual Studio, for example. I don't think it will ever happen because it's like a big thing in Premake, but there's always like this one edge case that can happen. Python is no longer supported. You use Python script for everything. Also not something that might come in hand there. But again, you are kind of limited to the whole toolchain. You're kind of dependent on them, on each of these parts that you have crafted carefully. Starting from how Windows works, how the APIs work. You kind of craft the system out of so many components, and you always depend on them that they are all good and all integrated. Now, on big software projects, what the people tend to do is they tend to put the less dependencies as possible. So, for example, a big game studio or game engine studio, like for example Remedy, I don't think that they really depend on too many external dependencies, right? I know I think they are using C++ CLR from Microsoft and all the Microsoft APIs, but that's a thing that you always need to do. And Microsoft is kind of one of the companies that provides stable support for the libraries. If you talk to them and say, hey, we build technologies on that, we are a big company, and they say, yeah, it's safe, you can do it, it's going to be at least stay there and be supported for 10-20 years. Yeah, but however, there are also the things that you do as a smaller guy like me. For example, Premake, Conan. I'm not having the time and resources to craft all my systems from scratch. Believe me, I did wanted to build a dependency build system on my own, similar to Premake plus Conan, and have it all been done easily, but it's not a good idea. I mean, it did work, but it's always hard to maintain, right? Every feature you need to implement it on your own. You have bugs, and it's really not the point. So yeah, what you do is you pull external dependencies in, and everything is fine. Like Conan, they have this new way of describing Conan recipes. It's something that you're gonna get a video in the future, but that's not the point here. You define your recipe here with the requirements for gtests for unit tests, logging, some XML and Lowmon JSON for project files. You're gonna configure them so that Google Test is not bitchy and takes control over your whole application. A bit of shared library and stuff. This is I think just for testing it out, which is gonna go to false at some point. Know why I had it true here, but this is gonna go to false at some point. And yeah, you build your old system, and then something happens. And what did happen? Well, there is one thing that happened, and that's what I'm gonna show you now. There was a new software release, Conan 2.0. So Conan, the package manager that I am using, has recently published a version 2.0. It's a quite big thing that happened with quite a few nice features. I don't know if these old stuff, if this is already a 2.0 feature, I don't think so, but might be. Then they also added one of the main features that always was a barrier for me and Conan, multi-build. Or a bit better support for multi-build. I think some generators already supported it. And multi-build by default, so building debug and release from Conan. A bit better deployment so that you can actually fully deploy your dependencies, copying them to your directory so that actually you wouldn't need Conan later on. So the idea is with Conan deployments, with especially full deploy, that everything is copied, it's built, downloaded, whatever, converted into the right form for your operating system, and it's copied into a directory. You do not need Conan to rerun it. It's completely independent out of Conan. If Conan caches are cleared, your project is still intact, and it's having quite some nice features that we of course want to use. So what we do is we pop up up our CMD, in this case our admin CMD, and we run the famous pip command to upgrade to the latest Conan version. In this case, it's the pip install --upgrade --force reinstall Conan. And what we do with that command, it's basically like, replacing whole Conan with his initial values. It's like completely uninstalling the current version, installing the latest version. Then we can like do some conan.v. And the idea is, there you go. You get some 2.0.1, Conan version 2.0.1. So Conan version 2, actually they already released a patch there, version 1. And you can see, we got the latest version installed, and Conan is fancy and ready up for running. So the next thing that you do is you kind of like migrate your project. I have already done that. I have my autogen.cmd here. Autogen.cmd is downloading Premake and doing several things, including a Conan build. You can see that I have made 2 functions for that. What I do is first download Premake, or not. Let's talk about this a bit more cleaner. So what I do here, my Python main, is I download Premake with the version 5.0 beta 2. Then I have a few commands that I want to execute. The commands that I want to execute is Conan build with debug, Conan build with release, and Premake generate, and later on they are actually executed with subprocess.call. Because they're kind of like actually built into commands. And for example, like Premake generate is calling Premake, as you already know it, from the location where it has downloaded it. And Conan build is running Conan install -build missing settings build type equals configuration, or you could also do this like stuff like this as build type, what we already got here. And what I've done here is added a few new options that were coming here from Conan 2.0. I've added the output folder. First of all, now Conan is outputting into some different structures than it has done previously. So what I do is I put everything into vendor. It's the idea that we're gonna later on have a vendor directory where we're gonna have all of our installed dependencies. I also have like a package directory here if I later on need to create custom Conan packages, so that all is integrated here and integrated well. Then I also have this full deploy option, which is basically copying everything that we need into the vendor directory so that everything is good. All right, so that's what you do. You change that one here, and you're ready to go. Now you're not ready to go because previously the generator was called Premake, and just to simulate, I'm just going to put this one to Premake because it's the generator of Conan 1. Whatever. And the idea is now that if we are auto-generating our project, which I do with running the command autogen here, with my batch file, we try to do it, and we get errors, right? Why do we get errors? Well, because Conan has changed, and, well, invalid generator Premake. Available types are. Then you get a list of generators that are supported, and what you can see is that right at the end you're going to find Premake deps. What is Premake deps? Well, they changed a bit of the terminology. You can see that we have something like CMake toolchain and CMake deps. The idea is that a deps generator on Conan generates dependencies, so dependencies that are consumed by Premake, or in this case CMake, and something called toolchain that you can use to generate the toolchain for building. So the idea is if you have the toolchain, you can build with it. If you have the dependencies, you can use it. So this one, the CMake toolchain, is mainly used if you're authoring a project. If you're authoring your project, it's not the idea that you download CMake on your own. The idea is that you say, all right, this is CMake toolchain. And then most of the time also CMake deps, so that you can import other CMake projects, other dependencies, and then use the CMake toolchain to generate your package. In our case, we don't care because we are at the end of the chain. We are not going to develop a package, we're developing an application, which is that we only need these dependencies tools. They are available here in this case for CMake, Microsoft Build, Nmake here, VC, Vars, QBS, Profile, Virtual, RunEnv, Auto Tools, Package Config, Bazel, Intel, Xcode, and so on. But the one thing that we are interested in is Premake deps. So what we do is we take ourselves some Premake deps, put it in here, and are happy that it runs. And it doesn't. Premake deps is no longer supported in Conan 2.0, or never has been supported in Conan 2.0. It has been ported somehow, I think, because if it hadn't been ported, it would not be in here. But you can see that it is actually not working at all. It is having an issue on that call, which is basically telling you that component has no attribute aggregate components. So Premake is completely broken. Now, if you're seeing that, you're gonna say, "Wait a minute, this can't be right. This must be an issue. Let's open up a issue on the Conan GitHub page and say, hey, this is wrong." But however, no, it's actually not wrong. This is actually by design, because if you take a look at the code and documentation and you go into integrations, you can see that no integration for Premake is listed. We have like CMake, Visual Studio, which is like MS Build, Auto Tools, which is like GNU Auto Tools, and it's called Auto Tools. You already saw it here in package config. We have Xcode, which is called Xcode Depps. We already saw these. Manson, which is Manson Toolchain. Yeah, it's not completely in here, but it's at least there. Android, which is referring to another example, how to do cross-build, and of course famous CMake with our CMake Depps toolchain and CMake build helpers, whatever. So you can see, right, everything is documented, but Premake is not in here. Well, they tried to port Premake. I actually talked to them on the internet via GitHub. I talked to the developers of Conan, and what they have done is basically they tried to port Premake from the old Conan version to the new one. However, they failed, and they have not continued on with that because they don't have expertise on Premake. They do know all the other build systems, but the team behind Conan, it's like JFrog as far as I know, they have no expertise on Premake at all. They haven't used it. It probably got sometimes into Conan 1.0 by some developer, and the developer was not available for like writing it to 2.0. I mean, probably they don't even like tag them. Like JFrog, it's a company, right? JFrog is a company. They are taking a look at their product, and they are knowing, right, these are the generators that we support. These are the ones that we're going to port. Yeah, let's take a look at the Premake ones. The developer take a look at these, tried a refactoring for the new system, failed, and was taking a look at this and seeing, all right, no, we do not have the capabilities and knowledge to port this to Premake because it would be too expensive, because we don't have the knowledge there. So we would need to take a developer and set them there for like a week, just like learning Premake, seeing how Premake works, building multiple projects in Premake so that you know what's actually required to run Premake properly, and then at some point pay this developer to try and port it. So it's a quite long process. You need to pay the people, and the outcome is that you have a module that nobody really asked for, right? Premake is still an edge case. Most people are using CMake or other build systems. Premake is definitely a edge case. Yeah, actually, the old Premake version that was in Conan 1. Whatever wasn't even supporting multi-build. As far as I'm concerned, Conan 1 also supported multi-build. However, Premake did not. Premake just overrided with the last configuration, which is why in my C++ tutorial series I had like a full video writing Conan.py, which in general like read the default output of Conan and converted this into a Premake file. Then it was generated again with Conan, and then it read the output of Conan again, and then it was able to create proper Premake Lua files for that. And this was the first thing that I've thought about it. When I got this error, I was saying, all right, screw this, I'm just going to use the same method that I've done previously. However, this is not possible, because if we have no generator, I think we're not even able to generate our project. It's going to yell at us that we don't have generators. Yeah, invalid generator. Oh, wait a minute. I haven't tried out to completely remove it, but even if I do, if we don't have any generator, I think it should not produce something useful. Yeah, I mean, it installed successfully, which means that we have that vendor directory, and inside of that vendor directory, we have a few batch files. However, these batch files do not contain any information that's like relevant for the library. I mean, we have the host folder with all the dependencies with like include libs and license folder. We could try to crawl these and try and find out which ones we need, but especially when it comes like to preprocessor defines, we are screwed, right? We cannot reconstruct from a default Conan output what we need for Premake, and that's a problem. So what we need to do now is find a solution to that problem. So obviously Premake Depps, it's broken, it doesn't work. So la is our generator, and what we're gonna do is run it again and see if we can find something similar. Alright, so if you can see, we have now all of these generators shown again. Now what we are using for our project is gonna be solo Windows. So what we could say is, alright, we're gonna take Microsoft build dependencies and just solo use Windows. We're not gonna use Linux or something like that, so we can go full on for Microsoft build dependencies and use the Microsoft build dependencies and try to integrate them with Premake. So if we use MS build, You can see everything succeeds. Well, still, Premake is yelling at us because it's not finding its file, but everything's finished. And if we're taking a look at the vendor directory, you can see that we have a hell of a lot of more files in here that are called something .props. The .props files are the Microsoft built property files, and you can see that we are starting with a root file called Conan deps.props, and this Conan deps.props is importing properties files depending on the library. So, for example, property file for Conan gtest, and if we go for that, Conan gtest, gtest props, you can see that gtest is actually importing several libraries: libgtest, gtest main, gmog, and gtest gmog main. We just gonna take a look at libgtest quite quickly. Libgtest, there we have the property file. You can see that this property file is also importing two more things, and it's importing them depending on the configuration. So for debug and int x64, it is gonna import debug props, and for release and int x64, we're gonna import release x64. So if we dig down deeper, for example, to debug, you can see that it is setting up additional include directories, preprocessor defines library directories that are all based on some variables, and these variables are imported by importing them here, and the variable file is also deployed here, and in the side of this variable file, you're then gonna actually see what's being imported. So you can see that we have like a root folder, we have the include directory, lib directory, and the actual libraries that we want to use. So you can see this is kind of like a very fast introduction on how MS build works, and you can see that this seems to be valid and seems to be feasible. Alright, so now that we have found a replacement for Conan, that we are actually generating something, we need to import this. And actually, if we look for Premake, so premake5.github.io, how was it called? Dabs, how was it called? Build, file, build, I do not know, I'm not quite sure what it was. Yeah, property definition, yeah. Is it? No, it's not property definition. I have like a history here, that's good. But the history is not enough. Can I throw a few things out and the history grows? No, it does not. So, reference, project settings. I'm not quite sure if this might be even... Yeah, I think it's a project setting. Build customizations. Yes, that's one. Build customizations is the ones that I was looking for. And you can see that build customization in Premake imports custom.props files for Visual Studio. So, right, you would say, and we found what we need. We're going to import that global vendor Conan deps.props, and everything is good. So what I've done, I've tried this, and I'm not going to bother showing you because it does take some time to figure out. It does not. The implementation of that function build customization is hard coding Windows SDK path plus string. So Windows SDK path plus what has been given here. And since our property file is not living inside of the Windows SDK folder, this fails. So, well, MS build deps completely unuseful for ourselves, completely useless. We can't use it. It's bad. We can't use it. Also, another thing that I want to remark, it's a bit of a nuance. Microsoft build props file here generated by Conan are relying on your configurations to be actually called debug and release. If you have a configuration called development editor or something like that, it's not going to import them because it's not matching a configuration. You will need to do some manual setup again. So also not ideal. But still, we can't use these props files at all because, well, Premake does not support them. And now we have navigated ourselves into a corner where we can't get out. We are in that corner where MS build deps is not usable, and Conan build and Premake deps doesn't work. So one is not usable, the other one doesn't work. So we have one issue in Premake that we cannot supply custom path. And we have an issue in Conan that it can't generate Premake files. Now, we need to fix one of these issues, or our toolchain is not going to work. It's going to be way complicated to like decode all these Microsoft property files to then inject them into our own custom script, which is not what you want to do. So we either need to fix Premake, or we need to fix Conan. So what do we do? Well, I opted in for trying to get a change on Conan, because Conan is a build system which has this generator that should be implemented correctly, but is not. So what I want to do is Premake deps. I want to have that one working. but it does not. So how do you fix something like that? Well, you go onto GitHub, and what you do is you create an issue. You go to GitHub, you go to issues to Conan, and you create an issue, writing the steps to reproduce, providing the log files, and boom. Doesn't work. So, well, what I've done is I've created this issue so that they are aware. After I've created this issue, since Conan is open source, I actually have opened up the source code and tried to find out what's wrong, which is this follow-up comment that I've inputted here. That one is wrong. It is calling dep cpp info aggregate components. This was working previously because it aggregated the components together and then merged them into a return value. This was like old code. However, this is no longer working and should be return merge dep.cpp info aggregated components. So fixing Conan is replacing these two lines with that line. However, this is then gonna still be old bad Premake deps. So what I've done here is other changes are quite simple. Screw that, they are not simple because I've done them. Really what we want to have is we also want to have multiple support. So having debug support, release support, multiple architecture support, so multiple configurations, multiple architecture supported for Premake deps instead of Conan. That's what we want, right? And that's what I told here. And then I offered to implement them. And this guy here, I think he's called, James. Conan co-founder, C++, C and Python developer from Spain. He actually answered me. Thank you for the report. Premake failures are expected in Premake integrations in 2.0 because they are not documented. And then he said, we can use some expertise, and provided a few informations on how we could, or how I could go on that for actually fixing that issues. And I've done this. So you can see that we have a pull request here that I have opened up, which is nearly finished. There are a few things and a few feedbacks that I'm still going to do. And if they are done and documented, this is going to be supported in the proper version of Conan. We're going to also have a separate video for that. So what I've done is I have made a few commits and added some unit tests. And now Premake deps is working. Now I'm gonna show you the dirty way of fixing that. If you need this ASAP, as soon as possible, you're gonna go to my pull request. You're gonna see where this is originating from. So my branch here. This branch is 7 commits ahead and behind Conan release. I still need to do some more things there, but yeah. And what you want to do is you want to go to some file, and I think it's somewhere in Conan tools Premake, and what you're going to find here is the Premake deps.py. If you take that one, show yourself the raw file, select this all, copy it, go to your bad output here, Control click this, no, because it's program files, which is bad, so actually you need to copy that one, Control C. Control Shift O, I think, is for open, and then you can paste this in, and now you're actually in the source code of Conan, and this is not how you want to do it. I'm gonna say this again, but it's a quick and easy patch. Paste this in here, retry as admin. And after you have accepted your admin prompt, you have actually now live changed your global Conan installation with my fix. It's bad, I know, you should do stuff like that, it's not the idea. But if you do that, and quickly delete the vendor folder because this is polluted, and then run your autogen again, you're gonna see that you no longer get issues, and actually even your Premake scripts are gonna suddenly work. Because I have implemented that feature, and now you can see that instead of a hell of a lot of props files, you actually get a hell of a lot of Premake files. And including Conan deps.premake.5.lua, which is actually doing Conan setup build, Conan setup link, Conan setup, which is including and calling the proper functions and doing everything that you need. The same syntax here, variable files for the libraries. For example, if we compare this to gtest, for example, where's the vars file with like the libs here, the include, library and binary directory, you can actually see that I have completely rewritten that and now works. So this is something that I want to just show you. If something is not working on a library that you are doing, that you are using, and a tool, you can always try to fix it. These people that are developing the libraries, like the people here on Conan, like James from Spain, they're gonna appreciate it. If you go to their open source project and you contribute something, you bring your expertise in something that they don't have expertise in. For example, here, Premake. They're always going to appreciate it. They're always going to appreciate if you come in and say, hey, we're ready to help them, but you always need to be communicative. They're going to have something that they don't like on your source code. That's guaranteed, right? And it's definitely not going to be that your source code is perfect the first time you're going to commit and going to create a pull request. Always going to say and give you some feedback on it, and you need to read this. You don't need to be offended. Never going to be offended by feedback from other people. It's going to be helpful and useful for you to do it. So yeah, and I still see some bug that I should fix with the tab and spaces here. So yeah, that's definitely a thing, right? You can do it. It's always possible. And heads up, if you're having issues with Conan and Premake, these changes are going to come in the future release of Conan. I hope I'm going to be fast enough to bring it to 2.0.2, but if I'm not fast enough, 2.0.3. Depends on. Right, I need to get this video fast on YouTube. I haven't done many videos in a while. Sorry for that. But that's the workflow. That's how you do it. This is how open source development works. Somebody has that edge case, somebody implements that edge case because it's no longer working, and we can all together build great software. That's the whole idea in open source, and it's also something that's also a business model for some people, right? Building and patching open source libraries, which is something I might do. So heads up there if you need something. Always contact me. So yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and sorry for not so much videos the last days. Thank you for watching. See ya next time. Bye.